you wouldn't think that that would be like our number one driver, but it just shows the importance of having a robust content strategy and also utilizing what is working, even from an organic or paid strategy, and leaning on that and continuing to push the envelope there. So if they're coming in through that, then where can I lead them and drive them from that point? So
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. On today's episode, I have with me Whitney Goldstein, who is the Director of Marketing at Rever, where she leads innovative strategies to drive demand generation and optimize Rever's position in the enterprise SaaS document management space. With nearly a decade of B2B marketing experience, Whitney has successfully implemented data driven approaches to accelerate the sales pipeline and align marketing efforts with broader business goals. Her expertise spans account based marketing, content syndication, and integrating AI to enhance marketing efficiency, which is why we're excited to have her on the show. Whitney, welcome to the program.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, the
So
pleasure's all mine. I'm really excited to get into some of the stuff here. We were talking off camera about just the state of the union, as it were, and I think you have some incredible insight into this. So before we get too far ahead of ourselves, Whitney, let's just start with a quick background on who you are, where you came from, and how you landed as the director of marketing at Rever.
Sure. So I'm from San Diego. I guess to make it easy, born and raised. But I have been in marketing since I started to work, like in the high school and college jobs that I had. I always found myself in the field and event marketing space or doing customer acquisition and stuff like that. So it was pretty easy for me to transition to marketing and do that in my undergrad and then later in my MBA. So I've always been in marketing, and I did start on the direct to consumer and e-commerce side at first. I worked in a agency that was focused on advertising, and that was through social media. And we did a lot of social media marketing, social media influencing, and doing influencer marketing campaigns. And it was actually there that I was introduced really to like the true B2B side of things. And that is where I fell in love with it. And at that time, it was definitely like the road less traveled. More people were going into the direct to consumer, and the more people were on like that social media marketing and digital advertising train because it was sexy, it was quick, it was fun, it was fast paced. And at the time, it was a little bit more of the road less traveled to go into B2B, which is ironic in today's world where it seems like that is the only road traveled. And so I spent a lot of time in cybersecurity companies and just in tech companies working in demand gen and specifically customer acquisition, and then pivoted and transitioned to a lot of emphasis on ABM. So I found myself at a unique opportunity when Rever came to the door, and I took the opportunity to join as the director of marketing to help spearhead and kind of rebuild this company. We are a 20-year startup, as we like to call ourselves. So we've been around for 20 years, but we're kind of reinventing ourselves and repositioning ourselves in the market.
That's really intriguing, just in the sense that um, a lot of businesses fail because they lack the ability or flexibility to pivot when necessary, and to what end, who knows? But the world is constantly evolving. Business should constantly evolve with it and iterate in ways that continue to be in service of, some higher North Star goal. So to hear that you guys are the 20-year startup, I think that's such a fascinating way to look at it, because it does really truly embody this idea that, hey, listen, if what we were doing isn't working, we're totally comfortable with erasing the entire whiteboard and starting over and doing something different. So tell me a little bit about how your role has evolved, and how you have come to reach this point of innovation.
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, I mean, when I joined, we were about a year post rebrand. So, we went from our legacy brand called eFile Cabinet to, as we're known today, Rever. And that posed a lot of challenges for our sales team and just the organization as a whole. It was almost like a little bit of an identity crisis or like a midlife crisis, if you will, of who are we and what do we do? It was so cemented in our name, e-file cabinet, right? Electronic file cabinet, that's kind of all we knew. And it was so easy to fall back on that branding and that name, that when we went to Rever and when we rebranded as Rever, we lost a lot of that efficacy. And also we kind of looked at ourselves and we were like, well, who are we? What do we do? What do we stand for? So we spent the last year really answering those questions and answering the question of like, what do our customers come to us for beyond electronic file cabinet, right? And more what are they doing today, right? As a 20-year company, we have evolved and we do have more sophisticated technology, security, compliance, things that are more aligned with our enterprise and mid-market customers. And so we needed to reorient ourselves and spend a lot of time internally discussing these things and coming up with answers so that we could then turn that into marketing materials and our go-to-market strategy.
So you mentioned early in the conversation that you started in the B to C space and then kind of transitioned into the B2B space. And I know from personal experience that they are two completely different beasts,
Yeah,
but I also know that there are what I'll call transferable skills. So
absolutely.
share with me a little bit about how some of those early experiences have kind of helped serve this rebrand and this new vision and how you guys are approaching making that transition.
Yeah, sure. I would say there's a couple of main pillars that I have really fallen back on from early marketing experience from the direct to consumer or B2C days.
Mhm.
One would be content and social media strategy. That was obviously where I started my career. And it's amazing how much of a pivot and how much of a shift the buyer and the journey of B2B buyers and B2B businesses need to make today. Content is so important, and the messages that you're putting out and also the marketing on social media that you're doing is so vital right now. Like we've seen LinkedIn and influencers become really important and really vital to a lot of businesses today. So I think that is one pillar for sure. And two, I think the digital strategy and the digital advertising strategy, coming in as the director, we didn't have someone who was really managing that as well with our agency. And so having to go back to those core principles and things that I did on the advertising side has been really instrumental.
So when it comes to the main source of that inbound people who are kind of interested or want to work with you or um, are intrigued by the offering, I know that referrals are over 80% of inbound, which doesn't leave a lot of room for marketing, which also doesn't help in justifying the role of marketing when it doesn't seem like our efforts are really contributing much to the business in the way of uh, helping acquire new business when it's all happening from people talking about it, which from a bird's eye view initially kind of sounds like a challenge, but if you just kind of reframe that or shift your focus to a different part of this, it also presents as an opportunity. And one of the things that I think that you guys are kind of aiming at here is in this rebranding, yeah, we did this one thing very well, and we weren't listening to our clients. Our clients need other things, and we're capable of those other things, and therefore we have to do something about that. And so I get that maybe from on the onset, there's a feedback loop that needs to be created where okay, here's what we're trying to innovate, here's what we're trying to do, here's the new rebrand, the new messaging, the new core offer, whatever. What else do you guys need? And then you take that information, you have to discern from that what is going to be an appropriate um, path to take. And then if you get it right, your product, your service, your brand becomes talk aboutable. So how much of that is it kind of accurate in terms of like what your thinking was, and then from there, kind of walk me through the strategy. What did you guys do to implement something like this?
Yeah. Well, I will say to your first point of um, advocating for marketing, right, is something that anyone in a leadership position in a marketing department has had to do time and time again. And then I
Hmm.
think, especially in today's economy and today's market, it's even more important and vital to be able to do that. And it's difficult because, like you said, it's all of the things that we do that go into a demand gen or customer acquisition strategy or funnel don't always point a one-to-one ROI. And so it's really hard to say, well, it depends. It was kind of this thing that led to this, but it wouldn't have been this if we didn't do this, you know? And to the CEO and senior leadership, they're like, it falls on deaf ears. But the interesting thing is that we actually couldn't lean on referrals as much as we were going through this change and this pivot
Mm.
because the customers that made up our clientele for the first 15 to 20 years of the business weren't who were not forcing us, but making us and encouraging us to pivot and innovate and move up market. We found that there was other customers that we had acquired more recently that were pushing the envelope that we were serving better than some of those smaller customers. So it was actually more of a strategy of how do we bring those customers up with us? And it was through upsell, expansion, and cross sell that we were able to bring customers with us on this journey that then led to more referrals and more word of mouth and customer marketing for us. So it was a little bit of a roundabout and unique way of going about it, but it did through that also innovate and push the product further to where it is today.
So what I'm hearing is that this is one of those situations where we need to spend time going deeper with the existing clients as opposed to going wider with the service offering.
Exactly, because so many of our customers weren't utilizing the robust and new features, right? They were still at the core using us as an electronic file cabinet, which at the price point we were trying to go towards was just not valuable enough. So,
Yeah, so there's this necessity to innovate. So one of the things that you pointed at too is a a term that I've talked about on the show before called the dark funnel. I think Chris Walker's really advocating for this. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he talks about our attribution, right? When we're trying to figure out where our clients are coming from and how they're getting there, and naturally we try to optimize to make that the best possible situation. There is just a certain flow that our customers follow that just can't be predicted. There are, if somebody, let's say, watches this conversation with you and me, and they're a little bit more interested in what you guys are up to, so they go and Google Rever, and they find one of your offers on that landing page, and then they sign up. Did that happen because of the podcast, or did that happen because of the Google search? And I'm really, really simplifying it.
yeah.
Um, but because it's more complicated than that. Beyond
Yes.
that, though, so at what point do we say, oh, it came from this, it came from that, or as we continue to innovate that journey, do we just become a little bit more flexible with how it looks? And so, Whitney, can you kind of just help me map out what that looks like as far as like a customer journey for Rever? And then what are you guys doing to optimize that customer journey while still addressing some of that dark funnel stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've implemented and heavily leaned on implementing an ABM strategy this year and also having the sales team and the company at large be very invested in account-based marketing to your point of this dark funnel and all of the challenges that we have with attribution because the buyer committee has expanded and also become really educated. Like I use a VPN. I'm sure most people listening today also use a VPN. And so therefore you're probably more aware and adept to understand cookies and how tracking is working and therefore we're not capturing everything, right? So all of this information that we are capturing, there's always going to be pieces of the puzzle missing. So I try to look at it holistically and say that all of the activities that we are doing and all the things that we can see are pointing to this account doing the right thing in the journey and directing them in the right way. So even though we may have a piece of that puzzle or that journey missing, I can still overall say that we influenced 3 out of 5 people in the buying committee, right? And we know that these 3 out of 5 people did XYZ on the website or their intent and their keywords were XYZ. And therefore we can continue to guide them down this journey and this path that we want them to. Even if we don't have all the information, we can still do something and guide them in that right direction. So it's definitely challenging and it continues to prove a challenge as we have more tools and more things on our side, the more difficult it is to actually attribute and advocate for ourselves in marketing that our spend is contributing to that ROI.
Mm. So, what sort of metrics would you suggest people look for when they are trying to figure out what is or isn't working in a meaningful way? Because I get that there's a lot of data, and data for data's sake is sometimes just useless. So,
Yeah.
what are you measuring? What do you suggest other people measure to be more effective in their efforts?
Yeah, so I really look at it as at a core level of the traditional B2B marketing to sales funnel, which is the MQLs that we're driving and what channels are driving those if there is an attribution, even if it is just as simple as direct traffic to your website that doesn't have an attribution specifically to paid search or some other blog or SEO opportunity. There's something that you can usually tie it back to in terms of an activity that marketing did or that you've done to drive them there. From there, it's all about what we did then get them from an MQL to an SQL and how they've converted down funnel into a qualified opportunity and so on and so forth, pipeline. So I look at it really simply in that way because you can get totally overwhelmed with the metrics. And I am a data driven person. I lean on the data. I want to rely on data, but there's so much noise today
Mm-hmm.
that you can get lost in it. And then you can start to go in a different direction or a bad direction and say that it's not actually working when it is.
Well, and instinctively, we all want to do more of what's working and less of what's not, right?
Yes.
So that's what drives us to measure. But there's just intangible elements of this that can't be measured, like brand awareness or brand affinity or likable. Like, is the brand likable? So there's a necessity for those brand level activities, but you can't directly attribute it. So you have to make an assumption that, hey, the branding that we're doing or the messaging that we're sharing is what is helping support the decision making process for the prospects.
And it's funny, interestingly enough, like we have a couple of blogs that drive like organic traffic then that are not correlated to anything that you would think would be relevant whatsoever, but they drive the most amount of people into the funnel cold. And it's simple blogs and content like what is a CSV? You wouldn't think that that would be like our number one driver, but it just shows the importance of having a robust content strategy and also utilizing what is working even from an organic or paid strategy, and leaning on that and continuing to push the envelope there. So if they're coming in through that, then where can I lead them and drive them from that point? So
Mm. One of the challenges that I hear frequently is a disconnect between the marketing channel or the marketing department and sales, because there's with marketing, there's a lot of we'll say top of funnel work, right? There's a lot of middle and bottom, and then eventually somebody comes in and needs to talk to a salesperson. And so like that salesperson has to be armed with the right information to be able to have a contextual conversation with somebody. And we as consumers, I don't know about you, but me as a consumer, I know that if I landed on your landing page and on that landing page you were talking about XYZ, I'm booking a call with a salesperson to talk about XYZ. When I get on the call, I can't tell you how annoying it is for the salesperson to be like, "So what are you here for?" Like, shouldn't you already know that? I thought you like, but then I get it, right? As for marketing and from that perspective of um, having that connection between the channels and the bottom of it is
yep.
difficult. So how are you guys approaching that? What are you guys doing to alleviate some of those challenges?
So it's a good question. I'm laughing because it's I've spent the better part of this year dealing with that, to say that there's always been and there always will be this tension between marketing and sales, and I don't think you'll ever get away from it
Mm.
100%. But we work together really well, and I've always had a really good working relationship with sales. But it is something that I have really honed in on with them this year, because it is this tension of saying marketing can't do everything, right? Like we can't get the lead in the door, give you all the information about the signals and the intent that they've provided, and get you all of the discovery questions qualified before you get on the phone with them. What is the point of you if I can do all of that myself, right? So in that discussion, and I use a lot of personal examples as well to tell them that like the buyers are educated more than ever today, right? So that by the time they actually get their hand raised and are answering a phone call or an email from you, they have specific questions, and you better come in as an expert. If you don't, it is going to fall on deaf ears, and that is what we saw most of this year, and what we really worked to get the sales team and me aligned, or my team aligned, was you have to be an expert. You have to lead them in this proper process and discussion. And you have to show them that you have done this before and that we know exactly what it is that you're looking for. And we're going to help you provide that solution, or that we're going to help you find a solution to that problem. And I give the example of like projects that I have done, or things that I have done in sales, and things that I have purchased, or software that I've purchased, or even just in my personal life. If I called a contractor to do something about my kitchen, I have specific questions for you when we got on the phone the first time. First of all, if I can't get those questions and you want to set up another call later, like I don't have time for that, right? I want the questions answered now. And if you're going to like kind of bring me around the ring around to then set up a demo call, blah, 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 blah. And like that's a waste of my time. I have questions. I know where I'm at in this journey. And it's the same thing with B2B buyers today. They've done a lot of the work and the legwork already. And so you have to be armed as a BDR, SDR, whoever's in the front lines, to be very specific to act as that expert to that buyer.
Yeah, the connection between marketing doing the heavy lifting initially. Hey, listen, this is the story. There's all these little elements. This is what you need. This is what you don't need. This is how we're going to solve the problem. This is the problem you have. Whatever we're doing, if done well, that marketing helps the salesperson um, with so they have less work to do. The person that has arrived there is now in a decision making position, and so as you're saying, to position yourself as the expert to answer those questions and lead them there is the most um, logical flow of it. But there's all this weird. Psychological hacks and tricks out there that I think salespeople have bought into. One of them being, oh, if the first person to say a number loses. And I am sure to some degree, if you were to split test this in 1,000 calls, there might be a small bias towards one or the other. But I'll be honest with you, if I have already been sold on the product and my last question is, what's the price? And it's not on your website, and now I have to talk to some jerk on the phone about what the price is, and he won't give me the price,
Yeah,
I'm not doing business with you. And
exactly.
that's the challenge that I think we're facing is like, well, okay, we spend all this time and effort educating our clients so that they are prepared to make a decision. Then when we get them to the other environment, we're not adjusting course for that.
Right. Yep. 100%. Because it can be the fact that I already know, right? I've done a lot of the research. I don't even want to do a demo unless I know the price because it may not be worth my while to go down your path if I
Mhm.
know it's out of budget, right? Or they may be shopping and they do need to get quotes from a lot of different people and then set up demos so that they can make a decision. You have to be prepared and comfortable with doing multiple different angles of that sell. And I also think the personalization thing, especially with AI and so much automation in the sales realm today, I have really harped on the sales team about personalization. And the more
Mhm.
intent or information that we get from that lead in the beginning before it passed to your first outreach, you have to and it's I'm seeing it in a lot of the outreach and messages that I get on a daily basis from emails to LinkedIn messages. If you've put a little bit of thought, like just the tiniest little bit of thought into the email, I will actually send you a response and say, this was really awesome. Like, thank you for taking the time to actually send me a personal email with some personal information versus, hey, Whitney, are you having pipeline and velocity issues? You know what I mean? Like the automated emails that we all get. So
Yeah.
I think that also going a long way today for my sales team, and they're seeing a lot of progress and results by putting the extra effort into that first initial outreach to personalize the message and tailor it towards the actual prospect.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And we have so many new tools that are being created and being connected to other things that we didn't think were possible. I know right now um, there's an automation or a workflow that could literally take a trigger of somebody else talking about something, write a script, create a video, use your likeness and your voice, and then distribute that product out online for you and make it real, make it almost authentic. And a lot of people would have a hard time telling the difference between that and if it was actually you doing that. So somebody once said this is the worst that this technology is ever going to be. It's only going to get better from here. There's a lot of opportunity and room for improvement and iteration, and I think it's brave and bold of you and your team at Rever to take on that task and look at ways that you guys can innovate in the space. And on that note, I wonder if we could look a little bit forward, Whitney, at some of the goals. What's on the horizon? What's coming down the pipeline? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do have an exciting year ahead of us. We have scaled it down a little bit to be able to refine and then scale back up again. And so I think with a lot of those changes come a lot of positive movement. Um, a lot of the time when you're in a growth mindset or you're in a growth mode, you're moving so quickly that you are losing a lot of the insights and learning opportunities that you may be able to see when you're going a little bit slower and doing more attainable growth.
Mm.
And so I am excited about that. And I think there's a lot of potential new messaging and new branding that is going to come out of Rever in the coming months. So it's exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting. To close the show off, Whitney, I wonder if we could imagine somebody else who's out there up to it, trying to create something for themselves, pursuing this, facing challenges, and maybe not knowing where to go next. What sort of advice might you offer them?
From marketing specifically or just in business? What do you think?
Uh, yeah, let's start general and then see if you can get specific.
Um, I would say from a business perspective, it's evolution and continuing to evolve and be comfortable with the uncomfortable. We are in a space now where everyone is talking about AI and how this is going to revolutionize the industry and how it's going to take our jobs. And I would say that on a positive note, we have seen technology come in and change things, and we've managed to adapt and grow with it. And look at the industry that we're in now was not possible before the internet and before all of the amazing technologies that we've created over the years. So I would say be positive and don't be so worried that AI is going to take your job tomorrow. There's still plenty of human capable people and human jobs out there for us. From a marketing perspective, I would say that it's more brutal, I think, than ever for marketers today. I think we're being expected and asked to do so much with the smaller budgets, smaller teams, and as specialists, that coming from myself as someone who was a specialist in ABM or in demand gen, rolling up my sleeves and getting comfortable with product marketing and field marketing and e-com and all of the things, being able to stretch your skills a little bit and be okay to open up and learn something new is going to be pivotal for marketers out in the market right now.
Yeah, really great advice. You've been very generous with your time and your wisdom, and for that, and on behalf of everyone watching and listening, I'm very grateful. If somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain further or perhaps work with you, what's the best way to do that?
I'm on LinkedIn. I think my URL is Whitney Goldstein MBA. You can also find me on reverdocs.com if you want to reach out to us via that. Um, that's pretty much it.
Perfect. We'll make sure to link to that in the show notes so that anybody watching or listening will be able to find you more easily. On that note, if you wanted to reach out to me and my team for any of your marketing or AI needs, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this conversation. Thanks for joining us in this episode, and I will see you in the next.